considering that I fell in love with the music of Bob Mould when I was just a teenager, it was pretty trippy to get to ask him what music he fell in love with as a teenager, and that's one of the many topics we get into in episode 23 of LSQ. It's an interview with the great Bob Mould of Sugar and Hüsker Dü and Bob Mould's solo fame. He just recently released an excellent new solo album called Sunshine Rock that Rolling Stone aptly described as savagely upbeat. So we talk about Sunshine Rock, but also about Bob's songwriting process, about the music he loved as a kid, and more. And after the interview with Bob, an excerpt from an interview I did at Lollapalooza about a decade ago with Mavis Staples. So that's ahead as well in episode 23 of LSQ. Thank you so much, Bob Mould, for meeting me in the Valley.
It's good to be here.
Also thanks to my hosts, Shirley Halpern and Tom Monahan, who've been kind enough to lend us their dining room.
It's perfect. It's so beautiful.
In the middle of a Monday.
I would describe the interior, but I know that might not be appropriate, so I'll leave
vibey. It's hella vibey. In a little cul-de-sac up here.
It is.
I was thinking about all the places you've lived, all the places you've been, and the fact that this new album, Sunshine Rock, I know was made in part in Berlin, which is, as far-flung as you've been for a long period of time in your life.
Yeah.
And I wonder, generally speaking, if you think that your music over time does reflect a sense of place, or if when you're writing songs, whether in the moment or in retrospect, there is a sense of place about them to you.
Yeah, definitely. I think environment is always key to the process. When I started writing music professionally, I guess, in the late 70s with Hüsker Dü, it was very, very cold all the time. Minnesota was the joke would be, what do you do with those 6 months of the year where you can't be outside? You start a band. So it sort of feeds that creativity in that way. All cities and farms and anywhere, they have a rhythm, they have a pace, they have sounds and smells and customs that, and I think in the case of Berlin, a lot of customs that were new to me. Mm-hmm. And just, sort of the methodology of their culture and how that day in, day out, when you start to learn the pace and the movement.
What's an example of a custom that
I guess comparing and contrasting to San Francisco, where I spend the lesser part of each year these days. San Francisco's pretty free range. Out in California, you can just sort of walk wherever you want and, just jump out in the middle of traffic and do whatever you want to do, sort of like Frogger, a little bit. Whereas, Berlin, for instance, everybody seems to walk on the right, as we learned in school.
Right.
There's
natural adhesion to order.
There's things like, people,
favorite hardcore band, Natural Adhesion to Order.
Yeah. People probably know about Ampelmann, the little green man that's crossing. It's like a crosswalk thing. It's like a green man with a hat, and then there's the red person, like.
Wow, so he's a mascot of traffic.
He's
order.
The don't walk, yeah. But what happens is, and you learn it the hard way, is if one, like, say, if I were to jaywalk in front of a mother with a child, I would instantly be made an example of by the mother. Leaning down to the child and pointing at the man who crossed wrong.
Wow, cultural norms.
So you just sort of you have to learn these things the hard way. And I'm pretty good with modeling behavior, so it's,
So tell me more about what brought you. Did you go to Berlin to make music, or did you make music in Berlin because you were there?
I went to Berlin to take a break from San Francisco, to take a break from the very busy decade that I had so far. From the 2.5 years of writing the book, which came out in 2011, and the Disney Hall show and the Sugar reissues, and then the 3 albums and reissues and constant touring. I knew that I was going to have a break after, I was going to have a break at some point when the Patch the Sky campaign started to wind down in 16. And Berlin's a place I've always loved. I've always gone there on tours. I have a lot of friends who live there, musicians and artists and such. So it just felt like, hey, if you're ever going to do something like this good time. You're still very, very mobile. You can run and walk and climb stairs and do all those things, the stuff that we do. And,
So how long did you go?
Well, I spent about 3 months at the beginning of 2016, and then made the move in September of 2016, got my residence permit at the beginning of 17, and that just expired. So I'm in the middle of renewal with the government. So I hope, knock wood, that goes well.
So essentially ever since, except for coming back to do some of this.
Coming back to Oakland to make the record, because that's the studio, Tiny Telephone. Oakland was the studio that I wanted to make the record in. But yeah, so, my Berlin life is it's a neighborhood life. It reminds me of the one I had in the West Village. It reminds me of the one I have in the Castro. It's, sort of a little gay neighborhood, and don't really go too far out of it unless you're, going to visit friends somewhere else. And
do you think that it appeals to you to carve out new comfort zones for yourself in different, do you have a sort of a cycle of where you're like, yeah, I made myself at home in this place, and then after a certain period of time, it appeals to you to do that somewhere, to do that again?
Yeah, I think, I'm incredibly blessed in the sense that my profession allows me to live anywhere.
Yeah.
Because I'm completely self-employed in the sense, that I don't have to be anywhere.
Right.
So when anyone is afforded that luxury, I would suggest if you get it in your lifetime, take advantage of it.
Yeah.
Because so many people have jobs that force them to be in a place, and they have families and children that need to be, and that's a 20-year chunk if you have kids. And yeah, so I do like those new experiences. It tends to breaks certain patterns and habits that I have, but I also carry so many of the rituals and routines with me. So
yeah,
it's a combination thing. So yeah, and I don't feel like I'm chasing inspiration, but I know that I will find it at some point in the journey. It may take a few months, it may take a few years.
Right.
Then you once you wear your path in and you start getting routines, then that's, for me at least, that's when the work starts to fall into place.
Right. And you weren't there in Berlin for very long. It sounds like when it's recent enough that you must have started thinking about this group of songs for Sunshine Rock pretty soon.
Yeah. I started the writing over there at the end of 2016. I came back for a little bit, and then when I went back in the middle of 2017, that's when the writing really took hold, and the title track made itself known to me, and then that was the tent pole that got everything else moving forward.
Right. I know that you've said that you're sort of never not writing, that you're always writing all the time.
Keeping notes at least, and
right.
Keeping track of melodies and things. But yeah, it's funny because I know other songwriters that, and it runs the gamut. I know some people who just tour for 2 years and then they take 6 months off to write, and then they go somewhere, like they go to a retreat or they go to an island or they do things and they get themselves in that mode, whereas I'm more of just a day-by-day notes kind of guy.
Right, batch mode versus...
Yep.
Right.
It's always always accumulating, and then there inside any writing cycle there'll be intense pockets of activity where 3 or 4 songs might happen in a week, where just something breaks, there's
right.
Like
that must be a moment, that's, I'm guessing, sort of the moment when you realize, like, yeah, this could be something.
Yes.
Or
indeed.
that it stands up and says, I'm a vibe, or whatever.
I'm the thing you're looking for. So.
And so Sunshine Rock, cat zone.
It's all right. We'll be good.
Shout out to the cats and all of the allergies they cause. Cats, if you're listening, chill with that. Sunshine Rock, it's there in the title. Without even pressing play on it, you have a sense that it's going to be the vibe that you get, which. Mm-hmm. And I know that Patch the Sky was the end of an album trilogy, loosely speaking, right?
Yep. Everyone was saying that, and I just sort of went with it.
Right.
So, yeah. It's like, why fight the...
Listen, I'm not going to impose some narrative on your shit, Bob. Come on.
Why fight the narrative?
I want the truth.
As long as it's not a crazy narrative.
Right. But Sunshine Rock leapt out to you as like, yeah, this is a vibe to pursue. Because why?
After 2 Dark records informed by loss of parents in succession. It's just like, why, do I really want to keep going mining this, intentionally, or, just unconditionally giving myself over to it over and over and over. And it's tough because, the sad truth is that it keeps going on. But, at some point we can make a choice. Are we only going to look at this darkness all the time and dwell on that? Or do we want to get out and have a life and have some good experiences? And if you go out and have a couple really good experiences, like in succession, and it sort of spills out in a song, and then you go, those are the good times.
Yeah.
It's then you just go in that direction.
Right. And also, I'm sure at this point, knowing what kinds of songs, knowing how many shows you're going to play on an average album cycle, and what songs feel the best to play.
Yeah.
I would imagine is a factor when you're writing at this point, because let's be real, it's a lot of shows, and
it's a lot of shows. It's a lot of work. There's a big songbook, and how do I put it all together? And do I frame a tour in all happy songs? Probably not. I mean, even in this album, I look at it as like 3 acts. The middle part, the middle 4 or 5. They really get. They do sort of go downward.
It gets heavy.
Yeah, and then it clears back up at the end. But it's I've made records where it does not clear up, and that's cool too. So it's nice to have the balance on this one. The balance tipping more positively.
At what point? How old were you when the songs just started coming to you? When you started 9.
9 years old. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I started writing young, writing on a electric chord organ.
Okay.
And that was my instrument of choice. I taught myself piano as a kid, like listening to the radio, so emulating songs that I would hear it on the pop radio, and I'd be able to pick it out and play it right away. So I had that going for me. And then at 9, it was the, 6 major chords, 6 minor chord buttons on the left, and 2 octaves of keys on the right. And you just start writing songs.
Right. And where did the organ come from?
My folks bought it for me. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. It was like a Christmas gift, because they knew that I loved the piano at the house that I used to go to, where I could play piano.
Nice. But I mean, did the writing, was there an intention to write, or was there just a burst of it?
It's just emulating the things you love.
Yeah.
You just copy the songs you love. I mean, that's what any musician does for the first number of years of their life.
Right, right. And so the first couple of things that you wrote, what were they most derivative of?
Probably Beatles,
Right.
mid-60s pop, writing songs about my family, about my dog, about flowers, about stuff that 9-year-olds would write about.
Right.
And nothing too existential.
Did it feel like an important kind of outlet or a catharsis even then?
It was the outward expression of the sort of hypnotic nature that music had on me as a kid, growing up in sort of a noisy, violent household, to have those 7-inch singles be the salvation, to take all of that in and then learning how to let it back out. That's what songwriting became.
At what age did you start to feel disconnected from what you were hearing on the radio, or sort of alienated by what felt like it was being kind of shoved into the mainstream?
Well, I went through that period up to the early 70s, listening to amazing music, all the Motown stuff, and Beatles, Byrds, Hollies, Beach Boys, all the great stuff. And then 70s, that period, I was, in my early teens, probably more like the Bay City Rollers, Kiss kind of things that your friends are listening to, Fleetwood Mac, whatever, wanting to fit in. And then I think, for me, it was the first Ramones album, and that whole first wave of punk rock in 76, that was when I realized, no, this is what I can do.
Right. And was there a record store at near home that you would frequent?
No, I grew up in a small farm town in upstate New York called Malone, and the nearest record store that would have anything resembling punk rock would have been either Montreal, 50 miles away, Plattsburgh, 50 miles away, or Burlington, 60 miles away. So that I would have to make efforts, get my dad to take me to the record store, and it would be a whole day thing, and I would have a list of things that I wanted to buy. So
wow. So, and things that you had read about in fanzines.
Read about in like Rock Scene magazine, especially.
Right. And so how often were you able to make a pilgrimage? A couple times a year or something?
Probably like every couple months.
Yeah. Nice.
So you'd have to have my list together, you know.
Yeah, I know that you've said that your dad like gave you music, which is an expression I love. Mm-hmm. You know, the idea that it's the appreciation for music being a gift that could be bestowed by particular people that you encounter in your life, or specific artists even being given to you by specific people in your life. So in what way did your dad give you music?
Well, literally, it was the family business was like Adobe Gillis mom and pop grocery store. We lived, you know, in the house that was attached to the grocery store that you would, when the buzzer went off and a customer came in, you'd go through the kitchen and go wait on people. And because of that, and it was a small town, the vending company who sold cigarettes and tobacco also stocked the jukeboxes, like at the truck stop diner.
Right.
And when those singles got pulled off, I would get those as toys, like for a penny a piece.
Nice.
So that's that was the first, you know, true sort of giving me music kind of thing.
Yeah.
And and then subsequently just being really supportive of it. So both parents. So it was a literal
Right,
thing.
right, totally. Yeah, literally giving you the songs that you were early obsessions.
Yeah, and those boxes of singles are within a 4-foot reach of my work desk at all times, so it's not like they've ever gone anywhere.
Wow.
So they just sit right there.
Yeah. It's good to have some things that you just never let go of, you know, like in keeping all things in their proper place, that you have to let go of a lot of stuff and not hoard things, obviously, but to have some things where you're just like, you know what, these, as the popular Netflix home reorganization series goes, spark joy.
They spark joy.
They spark joy. I must know where they are and be able to touch them from time to time and feel their vibes.
It's the encyclopedia of popular music. It just sits right there. If I get stuck, all I have to do is go look in the box, and I'll put something on, and I'll hear a sound and go, "Oh, that's what was missing."
Right.
You know, not like, "Oh, I'm going to lift that out of that song," but you know, just the essence of sound and stories.
Right, which makes it make more sense that some of the early Hüsker Dü singles were covers of tunes that may have been in 8 Miles High. I'm guessing may have been in that box or something.
8 Miles High was at the time a more recent appreciation.
Right.
You know, going back and revisiting the Byrds, you know, a little bit deeper in 1982, 1983. Because it was so the opposite of what I was making and what so many of us thought we were supposed to be doing with hardcore punk, where there was not, you know, it was kill hippies, no melody. You know, we can all protest together, but not with them and not with that music, you know.
Right.
So to go against that grain and listen to the music and find the value in it, I mean, that was 82, 83 kind of thing.
So in the early days in Minneapolis, did you have to get comfortable on stage, or what did you have to do to No.
There was nothing to be afraid of. You know, as a kid, as an 18-year-old kid just doing this thing.
It felt completely natural right off the bat.
Yeah, I mean, I think so. I mean, I'm sure I was drinking enough that I didn't have any like clear fear. You know?
Right.
Might have had cloudy concerns, but not any kind of, oh my God, what am I doing?
Right.
Like, I'm just doing this thing. And I was, very lucky to have great people to work with, and also have really, some really good mentors early on, just people that were
in the scene.
Yeah. Specifically, a fellow named Chris Osgood, who was in a band, 3-piece in Minneapolis called the Suicide Commandos.
Okay.
And I became familiar with their music through Rock Scene magazine. When I was still living in upstate New York, I knew I'm going to school in St. Paul. I just got a scholarship. Oh, here's a band from Minnesota. I should buy this record before I go. And I listened to the record and loved it. And the first weekend I got to the Twin Cities, they were playing. And sadly, it was their second to last shows, I think. They were just breaking up. But the good news is I got to befriend Chris Osgood, the guitarist, and ostensibly took a couple guitar lessons from him. And he said, we're done here. You need to just go start a band and write songs and play. You're more than ready to do this.
Because at that point, you'd been writing songs for 9 years or something.
Oh, I've been on and off. Yeah, I sort of knew I knew the architecture of writing songs. I didn't have a whole portfolio, but I certainly had a knowledge of how to do it. And it was funny because as time went on, Chris was also, gave guitar lessons to Dave Pirner and to Craig Finn. So, so Chris is one of the most influential people, and that's amazing. Probably not known by a lot of folks. Yeah. So it was, so it was, so I mean, to have someone like Chris sort of instilling that confidence early on, and to address that fear or concern of getting on a stage when the band, when the first band, you get to see your first weekend in college, and the guy's telling you, go do it, and you just do it, and then you're off to the races. Yeah,
you don't even know any better than to be like, feel lucky about it or something.
It's
or
just happening.
Yeah. Yeah, and I mean, when you have the foundation of a scene, I guess you get to grow and incubate at a more reasonable speed.
Yeah, and I think at that time in Minneapolis there was such a great network. I mean, the Longhorn was such a great punk rock club. I mean, everybody played there. Blondie, Police, just go down the list. Everybody. I saw the Buzzcocks, the Gang of Four. It's like who didn't I see in that club? And then you had places like the Walker Art Center, who were so supportive of new music and and progressive music, experimental music. Yeah, I mean, there was, Twin Tone Records, was also there. And, it's just, I mean, there was a really good support system in place for new bands.
And did you feel once you had started playing shows in earnest that you were part of a specific world? I mean, I feel like artists often don't, they don't really feel like there's a scene around them when it's happening. And then in retrospect, it's like, we were all in it together in a way.
Oh, no, we sort of crashed the scene and made ourselves known and never went away. It was like, we're here. We're part of it now. We're in it. I mean, there was a little bit of a rub with being a St. Paul band as opposed to a Minneapolis band. There was a little bit of rivalry there, but as the 80s went on, I mean, that just became sort of a blurred distinction, at least to me. I mean, maybe the other guys in Hüsker still identified as St. Paul, but I mean, to me, it was just the Twin Cities.
Right. I mean, what were some of the bands that came up in that scene sort of after Hüsker Dü was already established and a big band that you thought that you were, even in the moment, you kind of knew?
Well, I think the band, Hüsker Dü and Replacements were pretty much at the same time.
Right.
And both of us knew all of the guys in Loud Fast Rules that eventually became Soul Asylum.
Right.
And they were the baby band. There was bands like Ground Zero and Otto's Chemical Lounge and Rifle Sport, Man-Sized Action. I mean, there was a lot of bands that we were able to help, much as we had gotten help from people.
Right.
We started an independent label called Reflex Records that went through Dutch East India distribution. We got to meet other people, like Gerard Kozlow, who had Homestead at the time, and then you start all this networking starts, nationwide and all over the world. But, locally there was, we would do a lot of all ages shows, host bands coming from out of town. There was, there was a lot of give and take in the scene in Minneapolis. Whatever generosity you received from other bands, you would pay it back. And that was really just a Midwest thing to do, I guess.
Right. And do you still get the same feeling now when you hear a new artist that intrigues you, or is there a layer of cynicism about new music now?
When I hear new artists, I'm rarely fooled, between, genuine and musician that makes records because they can or something,
right.
Like you can tell the people where it's their absolute passion. Like the first time I met Chaz, from Toro,
right?
It's just like, of course, I could hear it in your work, and now there you are sitting backstage at Rickshaw in San Francisco, just poring over stuff on YouTube constantly, right up until stage time. You just can't get enough.
Yeah,
you're absorbing everything. I see this. So,
do you go see many shows in Berlin when you've got time?
Yeah, I do. I mean,
what's the spot to see a show?
There's a Festsaal in Kreuzberg. Seen so like Ty Segall had a crazy show there. Huxley's is a bigger room. I just hung out and saw. I'm blanking on Kurt Weill.
Oh, nice.
Or go to like SO36, which is like the CBs of Berlin. To go see somebody like Sheer Mag.
Right.
Stuff. Go to Clubland over in the East and go see local bands like Pabst, who are opening a bunch of the European shows in March. Go see another 3-piece, and they just floor you and go, I want you guys to play on my tour.
Yeah.
Keep us honest, because you're really good.
A lot of stuff that shreds, it sounds like. That you still love stuff that shreds.
Yeah, there's that. And I mean, there's also, I've had some really, really magical moments with big clubs, like Berghain, which is, sort of the temple of techno for the entire universe,
okay.
To go to that place and, be able to see Daniel Miller do a sort of a live Tractor type set, or, go on Easter Sunday and stand in that line of judgment, hoping that you'll get in, because all you want to do is go see Todd Edwards on Easter Sunday in the small club, those are pretty magical things, right? So it's,
Yeah, you've got to be in a city where you have access to all of that stuff. I mean, it sounds like the places that you've lived are all places that have where you can choose in any given week.
Yep. Yeah, so it's nice there because it's such a great, it's like there is as much stage diving as there is sampling. I mean, it's really just, it's a rock tone.
Yeah,
it's a techno
I'm hoping
tone.
to get over to Berlin for the People Music event.
Yeah.
When they have it this year.
I think that's July or August. It's like later in the summer, and Funkhaus, the old broadcasting setup out in the East, is really cool.
I want to talk a little more about songwriting and just sort of how the songwriting process works for you.
Mm-hmm.
When you have, as we talked about earlier, there's always sort of ideas coming into the fray, but when you actually are devoting yourself to grabbing at it and bringing it down into something, where do you go? What's the process look like?
I go to my room. To work. The inspiration comes anywhere. You have to be smart in the way that you capture the essence of it. For me, I do not try to edit. I do not try to rhyme. I do not try to structure. You just take the moments and hold them and look at them and let them shimmer, and then you have them, and then you try to figure out, how do I put this together? How do I how do I catch this without destroying it? And you sort of catch moments and ideas, and then if it's a really good thing, then I just sit at the desk and the work begins. How much is it? What do I do with this? Where is the emphasis? Is this the chorus? Is this the title? Who are these characters? How do I tell? How do I set time and place in the first verse? Where do I bring the conflict in? How do I resolve it? Those kinds of things. I mean, that's what storytelling is all about. Right. I try not to get in the way of the muse. If I have a good day, that's the good day I just described, where you wake up, where I wake up in the morning, I sit down and something falls out, and I realize, okay, I'm here for the whole day.
Right.
I'm not moving. I'm not eating. I'm not doing anything. This is what I do until it's in the shape of a song, more or less. And then I put it away and I sleep. And when I wake up the next morning, if the song is not in my head, I have to question it. Because if I haven't been dreaming it all night and it's not there the next morning, I'm like, oh no, what was the hook again? I spent all day. If I have to do that, I'm questioning. But if I wake up and the whole thing is still totally there, and I'm like, oh, the bridge after the solo just arrived, before my first cup of coffee, I got to go right to work. So that's,
And then from there, how many layers of refinement do you feel comfortable imparting to something that's that good an idea right off the bat?
In 88 with Workbook, I was making very elaborate demos, and I continued that up through a couple years ago. And now I try to not color every stitch of paper with color.
Right.
I try to, it feels like, now working with John and Jason, my rhythm section on 4 records now, I've learned the less boundaries I put on things, the better results I get. So it's almost like you get, a lot of people call it demoitis.
Right.
When the demo is perfect and nothing, any version you ever record will not even be close.
Right.
So I've found ways to avoid getting demoitis now. So it's a little less detailed, but they're still pretty elaborate, Structurally, songs, I always want to have the song, I want to have the foundation in place. I want to have the architecture of the song in place. The height of the song and stories, the ornamentation, the stuff, the sparkles and garlands and all those things, that comes later. Word editing, I'm a little more sensitive of, avoiding word repetition or holding pattern words like just, and I think that was a result of editing through a book.
Right. Yeah.
So now all of a sudden I have, this is like another concern is, now, it's like, is this a Chicago Manual of Style approved moment?
Well, yeah.
It's just stuff. I mean, we get it, we have full liberty, but when you learn not to use holding pattern words all the time.
Right. And again, because if you're going to be singing that and annoyed with it when you have to sing it many nights in a row, you'd be like, why didn't I just change that back then?
And with this record, with Sunshine Rock, I mean, that cover, the Shocking Blue cover song opened up, that was the key that opened the door for the vocal approach on this record.
Okay.
Singing someone else's words handed to you by your engineer, printed off, so somewhere lyrics.com, right. And it may not even be the real words.
Right.
And realizing that I could not sing that person's melody line and having to make up a melody line on the spot and keeping it first take and going, maybe I should sing my whole record this way.
Yeah.
So then I'm now when I'm singing on Sunshine Rock, the album, I'm improvising as I go, and around the 5th or 6th, around take 3 or 4, I might go, why am I getting tongue tied right there? Oh, that S to that T to that S is one too many of a good thing. It's like I hear it in the drums, it's but like singing, so tough shit. It's like, why am I getting tongue tied? And then, I have my big book with all my notes and my words in big caps with a Sharpie, and I get out my white tape, and after take 4, I'm like, that's why. That's like it's too much sibilance right there. That's why I'm getting tongue-tied. A little strip of tape goes over and I change the word, and then so much easier. So I mean, it goes right up until take 12 when I throw the white flag, and just say comp it. I think the top of 7 and the back of 8 was it. What do you think? I'm leaving the room.
Do you rescue songs from a bin of your own, or once you're done with them, are you done? I mean, if it doesn't have the thing where you woke up with it in your head, if it just floats away, do you ever go out to that island and pick up one of those songs, bring it back to the shore?
No, I know where the scrap heap is, and
Okay.
if I think I might have left something of value behind, I might go pick it up. But usually, no, you just carry the good ones with you.
Right.
I'd be hoarding riffs forever. But and it's funny because sometimes 20, 30 years later, a melody will reappear and it will be exactly what's needed.
Right.
And I'd be like, wait, that I thought, I remember this one now, and I didn't use it. Okay, that's okay. And even a bigger example, I think, on this record would be the song Western Sunset, which is the closer for Sunshine Rock. This is the 3rd time we've taken that song into the studio. We took it in for Silver Age, and we took it in for Beauty and Ruin. Wonderful song. Neither time did it stick, and I didn't know why. And this time, when Sunshine Rock appeared, I go, oh, I have my opener. Oh, and guess what? I have my closer. I need to fix this song. Whatever was broken was Western Sunset. Now needs to be fixed. So when I pulled the song back up and told John and Jason, guess what we're trying again? And they're all like, Western Sunset? I'm like, yep. And I think I fixed it. It was basically what happened. It was like intro, long verse, half bridge, long verse, long bridge, chorus. I got rid of the first verse and the half bridge. And all of a sudden it was like, oh, phew, I don't need an hour to set the stage for this story. And all of a sudden we got to the chorus and the song. Everything else stayed completely intact. And it was this majestic finish, and we'd been waiting for 7 years to get this one right. So it's a crazy process.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah, I mean, that's like an hour of my normal day right there.
Yeah.
Constantly.
But obviously it brings you great joy.
Yeah.
Yeah, knowing that that's what you get to do tomorrow or the next day or the next day.
Yeah, except when bored in the supermarket line in Berlin and I'm like humming or singing or constructing something in my head and everybody's staring at me and then the cashier just like, are you singing? Sorry.
We don't sing in the supermarket.
Sorry.
Well, I think that's a good place to wrap.
All
Bob,
right.
Thank you so much for stopping by.
Thank you, Jenny.
I was doing some reporting at Lollapalooza in summer of 2010 for Rolling Stone when I had the opportunity to interview the incredible and legendary gospel and R&B singer Mavis Staples. She was 70 at the time, but had more energy than pretty much anyone I'd ever interviewed before, and probably since. That summer, she was leading up to the release of an album called You Are Not Alone that went on to win the Grammy for Best Americana Album, and which was produced by Wilco's Jeff Tweedy, who it turns out was not just a great creative collaborator, but also a great provider of in-studio amenities. Take a listen.
And he's so comical. This dude is so comical. I told Tweety, this was the happiest session. Because we were laughing most of the time. He's just witty and he's quick, and anything that comes out of his mouth is funny. Yeah. And then the session was so cool because he had a caterer at the session. I said, Tweety, you got a caterer. Mavis, did Ryker have a caterer for you? I said, no, Ryker didn't have. He kept shocking me. The next thing he had was a teleprompter. I got my music stand and my song on the paper I've written out on the music stand, but there's a teleprompter rolling my lyrics. I said, Tweety, you spoiling me good, man. You imagine? He said, Mavis, you deserve a teleprompter. And, this was so unusual. You don't see a caterer, and this caterer, the man would come in the back of the loft. He'd be back there by the kitchen. We'd be up front of the corner. We could smell the food, and so we started looking at each other. And Tweety would be standing there. He said, "Nobody eat. Nobody get to eat until this song is finished." So we get together, finish the song. Nobody make no mistakes because the food smelled so. And then it got to where we could tell this guy what we wanted, and he would bring it. What'd you get? I wanted corn on the cob and some red beans and rice. And then he had lasagna. He had the best, most beautiful salads and all different salad dressings and rolls. And one day he brought in some barbecue beef and he just a variety. Because we were in the studio every day. Now, the very first time we started was December 5th, and we were there maybe about 8 days, and we cut for Christmas, And he would bring food every day. Then the next time we went back in, like January, and we were there maybe 10 days, and I would get upset because some days Tweety, he was so considerate of me. He would call and tell me, how cold it was. It was cold in Chicago. This was our coldest winter in years. And a lot of snow. So I was driving up to the north side every day. He would call, Mavis, you stay in today because you don't need to be coming out in this weather. I'll work with the band. I said, well, what about my lunch? What about the caterer? I'm going to miss the caterer. So, it will save you something. We'll put it in the fridge for you. I said, no, I'm cool. I'm at home. But I appreciated him, being considerate of me out there in the snow and that cold. But he did. This song, one of these old songs that he played for me, that my father used to play for us when we were kids, on his big 78 record. These are old gospel, traditional songs. And he started playing them. I said, Tweety, where did you get that? These songs are older than me. They were recorded in the early 30s. And he said, well, Mavis, I like this. I said, yeah, you're a young man with an old soul. You like this old soul. All the staple singers, stuff from the 50s and 60s. But this song, Wonderful Savior. And these guys were singing a cappella. So we sang this one song a cappella, something I never done, never on a record, you know. And Tweety gets this big idea, Mavis, we're going to go out in the corridor. We'll go out in the stairwell. I said, I ain't going out there. I'm not going out there. It's cold out there. It was freezing. It was below zero. I said, it's cold out there. I am not going out there, Tweety. Mavis, we got to sing this sound. And it was good sound. So he told me, he said, somebody get Mavis a coat and a hat, a scarf, and some gloves. Mavis, go out there and sing. So we went out. You could see the vapor coming from all around. We were all around one microphone. And the sound was just great. I have found a wonderful Savior. And all of us were... So when we went back in, it sounded so good to me. I said, do we need to do it? And we go back. And he said, no, that was it. It was good that day. You don't need to go back. But I was ready to do it again. It was just that, you know, it didn't sound like an echo chamber. You know how good people sound? People think they sound really good in the shower.
Yeah.
Well, it was that kind of sound.
Is this so far the either the making of the record or just your excitement about it before? Does it remind you of any other record that you've made?
Yeah, you know, the making of it, the songs, the sound. I can't wait for the world to hear it. That's what has me so excited. And the fact of working with Jeff Tweedy, the different, see, this is a different sound for me. And the songs, he kept me in my comfort zone. The songs are still message songs that I would sing. Wrote a song for everyone. You're not alone. You know, this is what I do. This is Mavis singing message songs to inspire and uplift you and motivate you to keep on going. You know, so but the instrumentation, the sound of those it's a clearer sound. The guitars and I hear a lot of my father's licks. You know, Rick. The guitar, he plays a lot of Pop's licks. And then by us singing 3 Staples singers songs. See, this CD took me back. First, it took me to my childhood with the 2 Golden Gate Jubilee songs. Those are the 2. And then it took me to my teenage years, the songs that the Staples singers sang, because we did 3 Staples singer songs from the 50s and 60s. In the 50s, I was a teenager. Then it brought me on to this point to where I'm a young lady, you know. So I went full circle,
yeah.
You know. But no, I'm way past a young lady. But I'm just grateful. I'm just grateful to even still be here and to be wanting to be heard, you know, because I've been singing a long time. And for these young people, the way they were responding to the music, you know, that makes you feel really good inside. That makes me feel so good, and I'll be grinning tonight in my sleep if I get to sleep, because I'm wired up now. You know? so yeah. I tell you, I'll be, if this continues to happen for me, I will be around a long time, you know.
Yeah.
And I'll be young.
For that.
Yes, I'm grateful. You know, I want to at least make it to where my pops was 87 years old, and he was still moving, you know. I said, I got to keep up with Pops.
Honestly, I think about that interview all the time because Mavis Staples' energy is just one of the purest things I've ever been around. It's like her love of music, her passion for singing, it animates everything she does. And she plays shows all the time. She's even going to be in Austin during South by Southwest playing at the Luck reunion event. I mean, I don't even go to South by Southwest anymore, but 80-year-old Mavis, she's on it. And she is doing a series of 80th birthday shows, Mavis and Friends, playing concerts in Nashville and New York and LA in May for her big 8-0. Oh man, Mavis Staples, I'm not worthy. Thanks again to her, and of course, big thanks to Bob Mould for his time and candor, and massive thanks to you as well for listening. Episode 24 of LSQ, out in a few weeks, features a conversation with the weird and wonderful Jennifer Harima of Royal Trucks. They're back in action with a new album in March and a tour coming up in May. Thanks so much. Again, you can reach me with feedback and all sorts of stuff on Twitter @JennyLSQ. I'll talk to you next time.